This is a technical video to cover SonicWall site-to-site VPN using Tunnel Interface. It is personally my very favorite way of doing a VPN simply because it mimics the exact same way we do networking, right? We connect a cable, we configure the interfaces, we do a route to get the traffic to go through. That tunnel interface is exactly the same thing. So what happened is the VPN will now be a virtual interface of your firewall, right? So if you have a firewall with 10 interfaces, well, now you have 11 interface. The other one is your site-to-site VPN, which gives you great advantages because the key one is you can do routing, right? You can use static routing, failover, like metric 1 is to get to a place is that interface, which is an MPLS, and metric 2 would be my VPN, which turns out to be a virtual interface. You can do dynamic routing, static routing. I really like it. So the reason why I like it so much, it's because it's the exact same thing as connecting a network cable. So picture this, you are working for an extremely wealthy company and they want to connect Toronto to Paris and they don't want to bother with VPN or MPLS. They want their own network cable. So they take gazillion of billions of money and get a cable to be run from Toronto deep in the sea to Paris, and billions of dollars later, you have a cable end to end. So what you would do, you would connect that cable on both sides of your firewall. The small light will come on, right? When you connect a network cable, the light comes on the neck just to tell you, yes, there is network connectivity. So there is a negotiation that occurs, right? Oh, are we doing 100 meg, 1 gig, or we half duplex, full duplex? So there is that negotiation. And then the light comes on saying, yep, we do have a link, we're happy. Then you would move on and configure that interface, right? On both ends of that cable, both firewalls, you would give it an IP address so that both can talk. Then you'll do a route and then you'll do access rules to say, yep, I allow that traffic to go through. So that's how you would do if you really have a network cable connected between two firewalls. Well, if you do tunnel interface with SonicWall, it is the exact same thing. You'll see, I'll show you, that's the goal of the video. It's the exact same step. You build a VPN, that small green light comes in, but nothing goes through because you need to create that virtual interface, give it an IP, do the routing and the access rule, just like if it was a network cable. So I love it. I think it's, well, to me, I find it more simple than a traditional VPN because, I don't know, in my mind, I'm like, yep, it is just like connecting a network cable. So I'll show you this setup we have for today. So that's our setup here. That will be the head office firewall. That is the LAN, and the white one will be the WAN. And of course, it's not a real WAN because you see the other firewall here, that's its WAN as well. So it's a straight cable, but just ignore it's a straight cable. Just imagine it's two internet line. And here we do have a cable that leads to a Voip phone, which I will use to ping and also to run some Voip traffic. So very straightforward. Two firewalls, one internet on each, and we will connect internet on this. Okay, so here is the setup we will work with today. So see here, that is the TZ470, that one over there. So the LAN has 192.168.10.1. WAN is, well, it says static, but we'll just consider it's a dynamic IP for today. I just want to show you another step, another nice thing in how to do VPN with one side, the remote location, having a dynamic IP. So it shows static, but we'll configure just like if it was a dynamic one. And here I have my Voip where the phone is connected 192.168.17.1. And if we look at the head office firewall, the TZ670, we have the LAN 192.168.20.1. We have a WAN that is static, and we will configure like if it's a static. And we do have the Voip network 10.7.254.2, where we have the Voip server connected to this, as well as my phone I have here. Not that one over there. That one is on the remote location. That one here is in the head office, just like the Voip server. So first thing we will do is to start configuring our VPN. So I'll start with the remote office. Everything I do, I need to do it twice, right? Because I have two firewalls, so everything has to be configured on both ends. So we go into IPsec, rule and settings. We will click on add to add a VPN. Standard VPN, you would leave it as at site to site. What I'll do here is Tunnel Interface. So we'll use IKE with a pre-shared key. We'll name it to head office. IP address of the head office. .80, I believe. We'll just confirm that. Yes, that's the head office IP address. Shared secret, I'll do 12345, 12345. So it is a shared secret. You just need to ensure it match on both ends. Here, local IKE ID, peer IKE ID. So if you do have a fixed IP address on both ends, then it's easy. Just put the IP address of both parties, right? Local, you would put your local WAN IP, and peer IP, which is the other guy, you would put the IP address of the other guy. In my case, I do have one end that has a dynamic IP, so I will make sure I need to do it differently because I cannot do the local IKE ID with an IP address. So what I'll do, we can just use firewall identifier, right? We'll just use this for both. And here you can type in whatever you want as long as you make it match on the other side. So local IKE ID, this is my remote firewall, so I will say remote firewall. So here the firewall will just call in the VPN and say, hey, I am remote firewall and I want to do a VPN with you head office firewall. So we'll name it head office firewall. I'll just put everything lowercase. HO firewall. Here, proposal, you need to ensure that everything match, but because I'm using two Gen 7 firewall with the same firmware, well, the default settings are the same on both sides. But here, ensure that if it works, that it's the same if you do it with a Gen 6 and a Gen 7 firewall, for instance. And advanced, we need enable keep alive to be turned on a single firewall. So if we have one that has a dynamic IP that is calling out to a firewall to build a VPN with the one having a fixed IP, well, we need the one which what would make sense is the firewall that has the dynamic IP to be the one that's trying to initiate the VPN and get the VPN to start, because it's the one having a dynamic IP being able to call to one that has a fixed IP. If you try the one having a fixed IP to build and maintain a VPN with an IP address that may change, it will be pretty challenging. So here the TZ470 is my remote office with a dynamic IP address, so enable keep alive will be on this one. Something important to keep in mind, we're not going to do it today, but if you do have multiple internet lines, if you have internet on X1 and on X6, X7 and X8, so you have 4 internet lines, be sure that the IP address you use in here to build your VPN will actually match the IP address here. But in my case, I only have one, so internet is on X1 in my case. So it is configured. I need to configure it on the other side as well. So let's connect to the head office firewall, my 670. We'll do the exact same thing. It is a tunnel interface. We'll name it to remote office. IP address of the remote office, I don't know, right? The remote office has a dynamic IP. So let's just do 000. Shared secret, it was 12345, so we need to ensure that it match on both. And here, firewall identifier as well. And here, of course, I need to put the exact same stuff, but the other way around, right? What I've set here, we'll just look at them. See, this firewall is calling himself a remote firewall. So we need to tell that the head office firewall is going to expect remote firewall to call in, right? So it's just the other way around here. So what it's going to happen is this firewall is going to expect another firewall to try to build a VPN, but it doesn't know its IP address. It knows that it has to have a share secret of 12345 when it calls in, and it will also call in and say, hey, I am remote firewall, and I would like to build a VPN with HO firewall. And this firewall, you will be like, yep, yeah, I know, you got the right share secret, you got the right name. I'm expecting a call from you, remote firewall. So next is everything here. We won't touch it. We don't need to, because again, same OS and same type of firewall on both ends. So the default match on both. So no need to touch it. And that's it. We can just click save. And see here, I do have my little green light, right? So it's like if, remember at the beginning I mentioned, if you have a very, very long network cable and gazillion amount of money to get a network cable between two major offices, well, that's what we've done here. We've connected the cable. The cable is connected and I got a green light saying I do have a link. So all the communication I mentioned, like 100 meg or 1 gig or 10 gig, full duplex, half duplex. So there's that sort of negotiation when you connect cables. And if everything matched, the light comes on saying, hey, you've got connectivity. That's exactly what we have here, right? Everything that we've set here, those names, those proposal, all of this match. So we do have a green light. We do have connectivity. So next step that we need to do is to configure that interface, right? Because now we have a cable connected, but no interface configured. So of course, nothing is going to work. So we'll go into network interfaces. And we are on the remote firewall here again. So what I will do is add an interface. It is a VPN tunnel interface. It is our VPN to head office. We only have one, so pretty easy. We can give it a name, so we'll call it the same thing, to head office. Here, just like any interface, we need to put an IP address on that interface. So here I'm personally always putting an IP in a range that doesn't exist anywhere in my network. So we'll do 172.17.1.1. We will allow management and ping on this network just for us to be able to test stuff. So 172.17.1.1 will be the IP of that interface. And of course, we need to configure that interface on the other side as well. So click on, not here, sorry. Go into interfaces. We click to add a VPN interface. We pick our VPN to remote office. We'll call it to remote office. Here, we'll put an IP address in the exact same range. So the other one was 172.17.1.1, so we'll do 1.2 here. And again, we will allow management and ping just for us to poke around. Okay, so now we've set our interface. See, we do have an interface. We have X0, X1, X2, X3, and we have an interface called to remote office. So this is an interface that has an IP address, and we see the interface is up. So everything so far, so good. So what would be the next step normally when you just connect two firewalls? You connect the cables, you have a green light, you're happy, you managed to do your cable correctly with all the 8 wires connected at the right spot. The light comes on, you configure the firewall to have an IP address on both on both sides. Next is to have a route, right? You want to say, well, if you want to reach a subnet on the other side, use that path. So that is the next thing that we need to do. So we go into routing, which is in policy, rules and policy, routing policies, and we will click on add. So I am on the head office firewall, so we'll name that route to remote office. So my source for my traffic is going to be my X0 subnet. So I want my LAN to be able to reach the other side. Destination, I don't have an address object for that yet, so let's create this. So we can click this, new address object. I'll call it X0 remote office. That is into the VPN zone because that subnet is reachable through the VPN. I want this to be a network, and because I don't really have a good memory, we'll go check remote office. The subnet is 192.168.10.0. So I'll just put that here, and it is a /24. And for now, we'll allow all traffic. I personally like to do the route that allows everything and then do the security with my access rules to say I only want this to be open from this IP, this port at this time, and so forth. So my route, I keep them more open, just like, yep, I need a route, and I'll handle specific access that I want in an access rule instead. So here we've set, I want my X0 to be able to talk to the X0 of the other end. Next up, it will be to remote office, right? That's my interface called to remote office. We'll give it a metric of 10 if you want. Advanced, I don't think there is much. You could probe if you want, but here we're just gonna keep it very simple. So click on add. And I like when you hit the OK button, so you can put your mouse over. So I see that 192.168.20, which is my X0 subnet. If it wants to reach 192.168.10, which is the X0 of the other firewall here, has to go through that interface. So I like it. It gives me a nice view to review to make sure that I've done everything right. So we'll do the exact same thing on the other firewall. So now we are on the remote office firewall. We need to create our route. So we go into policy, routing rules, click on add. We'll call it to head office. Source is going to be my X0 subnet. Destination, again, that one doesn't exist, so we will create it. X0 head office. It is in the VPN. It is a subnet, and again, if memory serves me well, 192.168.20, and it is a /24. So from X0 locally to the X0 of the head office on all services, and it has to be sent through the to head office interface, which is my VPN as an interface, and nothing to do on the other stuff here. Yeah, you need to put a metric. You can put 10 or 1, whatever you want. Okay, so again, put my mouse over 192.168.10, which is my X0, going to 192.168.20, which is the X0 of the other firewall, and it is sent to the to head office interface. So far, so good. Now we do have routing and everything. What we need next to do is to have access rules that allows traffic to flow through. So we go into access rule. It's going to be from my LAN to VPN. And as you can see, we do have a policy here already, right? It says from 192.168.10 going to 192.168.20, and it allows everything. And that's something that I personally don't like, because security wise, if something goes south on the on one end of my tunnel, like the remote office, well, if absolutely everything is allowed in the VPN, well, a ransomware will easily make its way through the head office. So I personally suggest you do not use policies like this that opens absolutely everything, no question asked. I don't believe it is a good security practice in my own opinion. So what we need to do is get rid of that policy. It is automatically created, and as you can see, I cannot delete that policy. So I'll show you where to go to not have that policy created automatically, and that we can then create the access rules that we want. So to remove this access rule, you go into routing, edit the route that you just created. In advanced, see you got auto add access rule. So this is the thing you need to uncheck. But first, for testing purposes, I would personally advise you leave it on. You test that your VPN works. Then we'll tighten the security, because right now you have no security whatsoever. Everything is wide open. So that's not something I personally like, to have communication fully allowed between two different sites. I want to ensure that if a ransomware manage to infect a location, that this ransomware won't be able to go through the VPN and start infecting other locations that you have. I want you trying to isolate stuff and make sure that bad things don't spread easily. So testing what we need to do. Remember here we do have, I am connected here at the head office. So if we look at the IP I have 192.168.20.194, and as you can see, I have been logged out for 15 minutes. We'll just log back in. So again, I have the IP 20.194, and I am behind this firewall 20.1, and I want to be able to reach the firewall that has the IP 10.1. Thing to try now, we will try to ping that other firewall, and as you can see, I am able to ping through my VPN. So that is good. That means my VPN is actually working. Now, if I want to remove that access rule, we'll go back into policy, routing, and here, and see if I disable auto add access rule and hit OK. As you can see, my ping no longer works. So what I would need to do is to create an access rule to allow, for instance, just ping. So it is from LAN to VPN. As you can see, all policies are disabled. So I will add my own policy from LAN to VPN. I could specify which address going to which address, but here all I'll do is enable ping. So let's create an access rule to allow ping. Of course, I could have been more specific. This IP can ping this IP and things like this, but just want to show you how to do it in a very simple way. So for demo purposes and keep things simple, I will just re-enable the access rule that allows everything. So that will keep things more simple. And it works. Next thing I wanted to show you here, let's go back in the interface of our firewall. So that's the TZ470. See, I have X2, which is Voip, where a phone is connected, right? But we did our VPN with X0 with the LAN, right? So that was 192.168.10.1. That was the IP we were pinging. Now I would like communication with another network to work. So I want 192.168.17.1 or anything in that network, like the phone I have there, to be able to reach another interface. Here is again another Voip interface, 10.7 to 254 network where a Voip server is, and also another Voip phone. So that's something I want those two to connect, and I want them to connect through the VPN. So I don't need to create another VPN. I already have one. Remember, we connected the cable. Now all I need to do is create a route to say, hey, if you want to talk to this guy, go this way, right? Use the VPN. So that is one of the great value I like of doing a VPN like this. Your VPN is functional, it works. All you need to do is adjust the route if you want. So keep in mind, if you do a standard VPN with a third party that you don't know and you don't trust, if you do changes on your side, they need to change it on their side as well, otherwise your VPN drops. Here, if we change routing, that doesn't affect the VPN, it's something else. The routing is, aside from the VPN itself. The VPN itself is just a connectivity. We created a link, we connected a cable. So that's all we have. So next thing we can do is create more routing. So we'll go in our remote office firewall. I want to connect 192.168.17 subnet, and I want that to have access to 10.7.254 subnet on the head office firewall. So we go into policy, routing rules. Let's click on add. We'll call it Voip. My source, it's going to be X2 subnet, where the phone is actually connected. Destination, we don't have it here, so we will create that address object, and the address object we need is this subnet, 10.7.254, which is the X2 of the head office firewall. So destination, network address object, we'll call it Voip head office. It's a zone in VPN. We'll create a route for the entire network, and the network is 10.7.254 of the other firewall. Next up, we say send that to my interface called to head office, which is my VPN. And here I will leave the auto add access rule, but again, security wise, if it's to Voip network, well, you can say you can only access the Voip server on the ports that you need, right? You don't need anything else to be open. So the more specific you are, the more secured you are. But here, it's not a video on creating access rule. It's about tunnel interface. So I will just leave that on, but if you do your own setup, it's not a lab, right? So turn this off and create the access rules just like I showed with ping. So I created route on one side, and I always do the same mistake of not putting any metric. So having a metric there always works better. And see, we have it here. So it's from 192.168.17 going to 10.7.254. And if we look at our interfaces again, 192.168.17 going to 10.7.254. So that's what we want. So we did routing on one firewall, then we need to do it on the head office firewall as well, because the traffic needs to get there, but also be able to come back. So networking, policy, routing rules, add, Voip. Source is my X2 subnet. Destination, again, it's the Voip subnet of the other side. So we will create a address object for that. We'll call it X2 remote office with plenty of typos. It is on the VPN. It is a network. And again, that subnet is 192.168.17. Next up is to send it to my remote office interface with a metric this time. And again, I'm going to leave this on, but only turn it off and create the access rules you want. And I'm going to click add. And again, we can put our mouse over. So 10.7.254, which is my local Voip network, can reach the 192.168.17 network on the other side. So now we'll see if my phone is able to register to the Voip server. So my phone is just too old to try to reinitiate itself. It's like a 15 years old phone if you guys have played with Voip. So I need to reboot it for that thing to try to connect again with the Voip server. I don't know if you see it, but all lights are green, so I should be able to do a call. And I'll put myself on hold or say something. Hello, hello. I don't know if you hear the echo, but echo. And I got that lovely music again. So that was route-based VPN. I just love it. So just to recap quick what we can do. See, you first start by connecting a cable, right? Once you build that VPN, that's like connecting a cable, you get a small green light, just like you get when you connect a cable to a switch. Then you need to set the interface, and that's what we have here. We've created a virtual interface that is actually the VPN itself. Then, just like anything, when you connect a cable between two firewalls or two router, you need to create routes, which is what we did. We created two, one to have the both X0 to be able to talk, and one to have both X2 to be able to talk. And then we didn't dig too much into this because goal was not to create access rules, but see, by default, we do have the built-in access rules that allows everything. You cannot delete it, and I don't like any like this. So again, you can go into your route and edit the route and disable the auto add access rule. Then it will have no access rule at all. Nothing will work. You will need to create the access rule to open exactly the traffic you need. And I strongly believe this is key to security. If you just open absolutely everything security-wise, it's pretty bad in my opinion. You need to control what you allow between two offices, between networks. And I've touched more on network segregation. I'll put the link in the description box down below on a video I've done on network segregation, but the same principle applies here. So you need to control what you allow between two different networks, between two different offices, and so forth. So I strongly advise you turn this off, and then you create the access rules that you need. And then if you want to have dynamic routing, you could go in routing like we did here, but that was pure static route. You could do dynamic routing like RIP, OSPF, BGP, and so forth. But I'm not going to touch on this today because it's not a video on dynamic routing, but that could be a good topic for another video. So thanks for watching. I really hope you appreciated that video. Well, I guess see you in the next one. Thanks.